then raises up prophets to hold them accountable. And the most prominent prophets are the northern ones, Elijah and his disciple Elisha, right here in the center of the book. Elijah was a wild man of a prophet living out in the desert, and his arch nemesis was the northern king Ahab and his Canaanite wife Jezebel. Together, these two had instituted the worship of the Canaanite god Baal over Israel. And so in a famous story, Elijah challenged 450 prophets of Baal to a contest to see which god was real. So they both build altars and pray to their gods, but only the God of Israel answers with fire. After this, Ahab uses his royal power to murder an Israelite farmer and then steal his family's vineyard. And Elijah again confronts Ahab's injustice, and he announces the downfall of his house. Elijah eventually passes the mantle of his prophetic leadership to a young disciple named Elisha, who asks for 2 times the authority of Elijah. And what's fascinating here is how the author, he's recounted 7 miraculous feats for Elijah, and then he offers stories of 14 acts of power from Elisha. Both prophets were clearly remarkable men, and they played the same role, confronting Israel's kings for idolatry and injustice. And ultimately, they were unsuccessful in turning Israel back from apostasy. In the next section, the northern kingdom is rocked by a bloody revolution started by a king named Jehu, who destroys Ahab's family. And although Jehu was at first commissioned by God, his violence just gets out of control, and it creates the spiral of political assassinations and rebellions from which Israel never recovered. Coup follows coup after Jehu, and each king follows other gods, allows horrible injustice. It all leads up to 2 Kings chapter 17. The big bad empire of Assyria swoops down and takes out the northern kingdom altogether. In the capital city of Samaria, it's conquered, and the Israelites are exiled and scattered throughout the ancient world. Now, chapter 17 is key. The author stops the story and offers this prophetic reflection on what's just happened. He blames the downfall of the northern kingdom on the idolatry and covenant unfaithfulness of Israel and its kings. And so, God has allowed them to face the consequences of their decisions. The final movement of the book tells the story of the lone southern kingdom. And here we meet some very heroic kings, like Hezekiah, who trusts God when the armies of Assyria come knocking on Jerusalem's door, or Josiah, who discovers this lost scroll of the Torah in the temple. So he starts reading it, he's convicted, and he institutes religious reforms to remove idolatry and Canaanite influences from the land. But Judah is just too far gone. The king, right in between these two, Manasseh, he's the worst by far. So he not only introduces the worship of idol statues into the Jerusalem temple, he also institutes child sacrifice. And so God sends prophets to say, the time is up. Israel has reached the point of no return. The final chapters tell the story of the Babylonian Empire coming to invade Jerusalem, destroy the temple, and carry the people and the royal line of David off into exile. And so the story ends leaving us wondering, is God done with Israel? Is he done with the line of David? Well, the final paragraph zooms about 40 years forward into the exile, and it tells a very odd story. It's about Jehoiakim, a descendant from David, who would have been king if he was back in Jerusalem. And the king of Babylon releases him from prison and invites him to eat at the royal table for the rest of his life, and the book ends. So it's not much, but it's a story that gives a glimmer of hope that God has not abandoned the line of David. So the question now is, how is God going to fulfill his promises to Abraham, to David? How is he going to bless the nations and bring the Messianic kingdom? And to answer those questions, you have to read on into the wisdom and the prophetic books. But for now, that's the book of Kings.
Hallelujah. Okay, I think that was a very good summary of the book of Kings. And what I'm going to, I will ask us a question that will start us off for what we'll be looking at tonight. And well, I hope you will say the right answer. Otherwise, we'll keep going on it again and again until it's time for us to go home. Is that okay? Because remember, last 2 weeks, we looked at, can we see? I can't see the last page we used 2 weeks ago. But one of the questions that we asked was the fact that looking through the book of Kings, that what were the main phrases or words that came up again and again. I hope we remember that. Then we zeroed in on the aspect of God factor. Yes? What did we say about that God factor? Anybody? In relation to all the kings, what did we say? How did we connect the reign of those kings to God? How did we, sorry? Disobedience. Mm-hmm. Exactly what's relationship? Yes, thickness. Okay. Give her the mic. Yeah. Please go on.
Those who did well had a good relationship with God. And of course,
And the other way around.
those who did not, their perception of God was not so good. So in the end, they did their own thing, or they always put on their own.
So we zeroed in on the fact that the success of their reign depends largely on how obedient they were to God. Yes? And every one of them that failed was for the sole reason that what? They disobeyed God. I hope we can remember that. Because I'm trying to refreshing us on that so that we can, because it is not just that's why you will not have to do so much theology in this empowerment hour. It's about application. It's about reading the things that were written, just like the scripture says that the things that were written are examples for us. So that when you read through the scriptures, even though you are reading whether Old or New Testament, you are not looking at it as, oh, something that happened 6,000, 5,000, whatever number of years ago. You are looking through the scriptures to see how does this apply to my life here and now. So the success of your living, the success of your life depends on one single factor. And that factor is nothing else other than what? Your obedience to God. Joshua chapter 1, verse 8. Joshua 1:8. Do we have it on the board? Okay. Is anybody there? Can you read for us then? Okay, it says, this book of the law shall not depart out of your mouth, but you meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make your way prosperous, and you will have good success. How many people want to succeed in life? Definitely all of us. But our success in life is not going to be determined by the amount or the number of degrees, and like someone will say, of Fahrenheit that you acquire. It's not that. Does that mean it's not good for us to get degrees? If you can, please go for it. Get as many qualifications as possible. Like someone become aware of who has had maybe 2 or 3 qualifications already at master's levels, done this, done that, and he's still planning to go for another course. And the fiancé say, look, Pastor, I'm tired. How many years of his life will he use to study book before we can settle down in life? God help him. But what I'm saying is this, your success in life is not going to be determined. Those things are good, because it gives you a good stand. It puts you in a good position, right? But what we are saying is the ultimate factor that determines your success in life is not anything you will be able to do with your hands. It's just what your heart or your spirit does with God. And the key thing is obedience. Okay? Obedience. So that was the focal point of what we did 2 weeks ago, because this was the page that we said the God factor, our relationship, what are the things that makes our relationship to be deepened. We said knowledge, what you hear, your attitude and character. Then we put everything together in a box. We said those are the things that forms your perception. Okay? So I've tried to do that summary, because like someone said, I believe for everyone, 2 weeks is a long time gone. We've probably forgotten. So what we want to do tonight is just following up on this. Now, what we've seen through that Bible Project video definitely is a summary. But the task I'm putting to us tonight is, I want to believe or assume, or yes, that you have read the book of Kings yourself at one time or the other. Is there anybody that has read the book of Kings before at one time or the other? Even if it's not from beginning to the end, you've read majority part of it. Okay, good. Because the question I'm going to ask us is this. All the kings that were mentioned in the book of Kings, what will you say played a major role in their deviating from God? Because remember, we said almost all of them started very well with God. Yes? But at some point, they just veered off. They left following God and they start to follow other things. Yes? What will you say is the major factor that led to their deserting God and following after other things? Women, I will write that down. Someone said women. Sorry? Idolatry. Alliance. Let me even leave it as yes. Alliance with, okay, Sister Adori. Their relationship with God, okay, which takes us back to that relationship with God, or lack of it, yeah? Sin, okay. Let's put sin here in front of idolatry. Is the mother of all of them. Okay. 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 All right. Okay, which is sin? The lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. Okay. Now, okay. Okay, ambition. Okay, which is the lust of the pride of life. Pride of life, yes, will be the ambition when they start to look at what my hand has done. Then I want to expand my kingdom. Yes, pride of life. Now, yeah, very good. What we've said, very, very good. I will read one or two passages of scriptures now. There is no wrong answer in any of this, okay? So when I make a choice out of all these four, it's just an opinion. But I want to believe that actually is the, there is, which I think people that attend, there's no more free space here. Okay, Sister Fola, can we have any free page here? There is what we call root cause, yeah? Which is the principle in, is the principle anyway in business places, whereby a situation arises, you are trying to find a solution to it. You find out that more often than not, research has shown that the solutions that you prefer right away, they tend not to be the actual fix for the problem. Okay? They tend to be just the off-the-cuff thing whereby everybody may even be in agreement to say, oh, let's do that. That's the right thing to do. But by the time you finish applying that, then you discover that this problem is still recurring. The reason is that is not the root cause of the problem. You've seen a symptom of the problem and you've addressed that symptom. But the fact remains that the root cause has not been addressed. And as long as the root cause of the problem has not been addressed, you will keep coming back to the same situation. So all I'm saying is every other thing we've mentioned here, right, in view of the passage we are going to read, I will zero in on this alliance thing because it was the bad or evil. Remember, we said all of them started right with God. Yes? So that means this was in order. The relationship with God was in order initially. And of course, if the relationship with God was in order, they will not practice idolatry. They will, yes, they still see women, they will still see women even after their relationship with God, but they will not lust after them. But the moment they begin to form alliance, I will say a classic example. And who do you think will make the classic example? Solomon. Solomon will be our classic example. We'll quickly read a passage, 2 Kings chapter 2, no, chapter 3 actually. Because what happens is in 2 Kings chapter 1 and 2, that was more like the farewell for David. Okay? It opens with after David has grown old and he did this, he did a transfer of power, right? But you find out that everything David told Solomon in chapters 1 and 2 to ensure that his reign as king will be very successful. The opening of chapter 3 from verse 1 and 2 showed that maybe as soon as the king was telling him, the things were entering through one ear and were passing out through the other ear. Let's open 2 Kings. We will not read 1 and 2. Please read that by yourself, but I've just given you the summary of what 2 Kings 1 and 2 was about. It was more like David saying, look, my time is up. You are the next in line. This is what you should do. This is what you should do. And if you read those things as well, you will see how many times David repeated the fact that, look, walk pleasing before the Lord, do this, obey that. But chapter 3 of First Kings, chapter 3 of First Kings, can someone read maybe the first 2 or 3 verses for us, please? 2 Kings chapter, First Kings, why am I saying second? First Kings chapter 3 from verse 1, maybe just 1 and 2 or 1 to 3. Anybody?
King of Egypt,
Okay.
and married Pharaoh's daughter.
Okay.
Then he brought her to the city of David until he had finished building his own house, and the house of the Lord, and the wall all around Jerusalem. Meanwhile, the people sacrificed at the high places, because there was no house built for the name of the Lord until those days.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. What did Solomon do? He went to marry from Egypt, and he formed an alliance with Pharaoh. Please, as Bible students, read chapter 1 and chapter 2 on your own. You will see that that was a classic disobedience to the things. And moreover, the things that were mentioned in chapter 1 and chapter 2 were things that had been written in the law much earlier, the Mosaic law, in terms of the alliance that the children of Israel can form and what they cannot form. And this was the starting point. That was the starting point to the life of Solomon going down the road. Though ironically, in that same chapter 3 of 2 Kings we've read, if you go down, that's where he did one of the most spectacular things in the entirety of his reign as king. Because he did a sacrifice to God. If you read, I think like from verse 6 or something, he did a sacrifice to God, and God actually showed up to him. And God gave him a blank check. Bro, what do you want? and he made the right request. But you know what? The scripture says, if the foundation be faulty, be destroyed, what can the righteous do? He already made a way of destruction. It's like you are trying to build a house. You have now made the foundation. You have damaged the foundation already. He did that very bad damage to the foundation of his reign right from the day one. Because if you read later on in the book of that same Kings, the scripture says the wives that Solomon had married, turned his heart away from the Lord and to their own gods. He ended up with 300 wives and 700 concubines. Can you imagine how many gods and goddesses that he was going to have in his own domain alone? Because as he was marrying each of them, they were coming with their own gods. And he was building altars to each of them. Yes, Deaconess. Okay.
Like other kings, they had prophets who were always there correcting them when they misbehaved. Like in the time of David, we have Nathan and others. But he didn't have no prophets in his time. So he was, and he had so many people to govern. That's why in that same chapter 3, he prayed and he asked God for wisdom, and God gave him wisdom to govern the people. But even when he did marry, the first part of it was that he married, he had alliance with the king of Egypt and married the daughter. And it was after that time he made the sacrifices, and God, gave him wisdom and all that. But God did not show to him, because God was dealing directly with Solomon, from what I could see. Yeah. But God did not reveal to him that, see, your foundation is wrong. What you're doing is wrong and all of that. The foundation is wrong, but I'm still going to give you wisdom. So the guy tried his best, but he wasn't.
Okay. All right. Sister Elizabeth.
Following from what she said,
yeah.
Yes, but before the father died, he told him. So he knew.
That's why you need to read that chapter 1 and 2. He told him
those things, he shouldn't do any of those things.
Yeah.
Because he warned him, he forewarned him. And he
Deaconess Ezu, before we move on, yeah?
I was just going to say, expecting God to quickly say nothing,
yeah.
God will not. The same way that he washed Moses and he said, yes, now go. Your brother will be waiting for you. And then just after he left, he was now planning to kill him in the way because he had not circumcised his son. So God sometimes will keep quiet for a little bit, and he's like that.
Yeah, I think that the morals of that is the fact that, look, when God gives you remember what we said when we were praying, that the fact that the society has accepted all form of nonsense as the norms, that does not change God's own position. In fact, there's another portion of scripture that says that do not remove the ancient landmark. God has made known the precept of his word, what he expects you to do, what he expects me to do. It's not going to be, look at it even naturally. Is it every time that even your child, you have told them the right thing to do, they go contrary? You are not going to be running after them every time because you know choices will always have what will always attract consequences. Do we get it now? Choices, and the aspect of the prophet, well, hopefully we'll come to it, because there are prophets that could have spoken to his life, that could have spoken to him, but that actually zeroes on what we are looking at tonight. What kind of association do you keep? He was so wise that he could have even chosen the best prophet in the whole universe that time. That's the kind of wisdom he has, but he did not. He did not. Because what we are looking at tonight is, we said alliance. Alliance is about association, right? It's about association. And how the alliances, for example, Solomon and most of the other kings that were mentioned in the book of Kings, the kind of alliance they started to form, how that has, in most instances, brought them away from God onto other things. There's an exception, or there are few exceptions rather, and I will quickly ask us to actually look at, like almost like in contrast to the steps that Solomon took. Let's look at 2 Kings chapter 12. 2 Kings chapter 12. 2 Kings chapter 12. Verse 1, 2, and 3. Okay.
His mother's name was Ziba of Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the sight of the Lord all the days in which Jehoiada the priest instructed him. But the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. That's verse 3.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. 2 Chronicles chapter 24, which is the same story. The account was given again in 2 Chronicles chapter 24, verse 1 and 2 as well. Let me quickly read. It says, Joash was 7 years old when he became king, and he reigned in Jerusalem 40 years. His mother's name was Zibiah. She was from Beersheba. Joash did what was right in the sight of the Lord all the years of Jehoiada the priest. Alliance. Can we see that? Alliance. He was very young, 7 years old. Whether he chose or they chose for him, he had the right people in his company. He had the priest, Jehoiada the priest, and the scripture recorded that what all the days of that priest, as long as he instructed Joash, he did what was right and pleasing in the sight of the Lord. The question I'm putting across to us tonight is, have you tried to evaluate your company? Who are the people that you have surrounded yourself with? Especially our young ones. Who are the people you have surrounded yourself with? Because the kind of people that you have surrounded yourself with will determine, like we said concerning these kings, whether you are going to fulfill the purpose that God has set out for you or not. Whether you are going to achieve all those dreams that looks lofty, all those, it does not matter even if God has spoken it to you, to your ears. If you go ahead and you choose the wrong company, what God said will happen, but it may not be through you again. Do we get this? So the kind of alliance, the association we form is very, very important if you and I are going to fulfill God's mandate for our lives. All these kings, go and read the other portions of scriptures that establish the value. Look, there is no king, there is no ruler that just came to power by themselves. There is a purpose of God in it. But that does not mean all of them are going to fulfill that purpose of God for their lives. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14 to 18. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 6 to 18. 2 Corinthians 6, 14 to 18. Mm-hmm.
Righteousness with lawlessness, okay. And what communion has light with darkness, okay. And what accord has Christ with Belial, or what part as a believer with an unbeliever, and what agreement as the temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I will dwell in them and walk among them. I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Therefore, come out from among them and be separate, says the Lord. Do not touch what is unclean, and I will receive you. I will be a father to you, and you shall be my sons and daughters, says the Lord Almighty.
Hallelujah. And you can just write down Amos chapter 3, verse 3, which is a popular passage that I want to believe all of us will know by heart by now. It says, can two walk together except they agree? So that means when you have chosen the wrong company, is because there's an agreement between you and them. And by that agreement, it doesn't mean I agree with you. It means there is something common between the two of you. Was it on Sunday, or when was Pastor Ajib said to us that if your life, there is no bombs, there are no challenges or anything. Sorry? Sunday communion time. That means you are traveling in the same direction with the devil. There is something common when you have chosen people. The kind of people around you is an indication that there is a common interest. That's what, if you read that Amos 3:3 in other translations, I think there is one of them that puts it in that kind of a phrase. That, look, the company you keep shows to us there is a common interest. There is something that binds you together. There is something that have attracted you to those people. People, of course, science has taught us enough to say opposite attract, like repels. Is that the way it is? Yeah? Like repels. Poles. Okay. So the other way around of science now. Because when you start to move around with people, it's an indication that something is binding. And that's what that 2 Corinthians is saying, that look, you don't be equally yoked. You can't be a child of God and the people that have your hair, they are unbelievers. Or they are people that are not going in the same direction you are going. How do you think they will help you to go or to achieve the things you want to achieve for God? This is not about just young people alone now, about all of us. If you have filled your mind, the scripture says where your treasure is, there your heart is going to be. Right? So if you have preoccupied your mind, your life with earthly things, with mundane things, with things the scripture says are temporary, then you can bet that your focus, your energy, everything about you will be consumed by what? The earthly, mundane things. Colossians chapter 3, if I'm right. Colossians 3, 1 and 2. It says, since then you have been raised with Christ. Set your hearts on things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. You died, and your life is now hidden with Christ in God. So what I'm trying to encourage us to tonight is the fact that, look, do an MOT. That's what MOT is for now, to check the health of your car. So check the health of your relationship. Check the health of people around you. Who are the people that have influence over you? The decisions you make in life, who are the people that you can point to that plays a major role in the making of those decisions? What's their own state with God? Because if their state with God is not what it should be, if it's one-legged, you can bet that decisions they will make, because they have such an influence over you, will not necessarily be in line with the purpose of the plan of God for your life. And that it looks good does not mean it is God. Hello? So that, they speak wisdom, they are very smart. Great. Smartness, as the scripture told us that already, that God used the foolish things to confound the wise. So that somebody is very wise does not mean what they are saying to you is godly. We shouldn't be confused with that by now. We should be able to draw a line. And sometimes, even when God asks you to do things, most often, not even sometimes, most often, When God is asking you to do something, whether through his word or through the right influence around your life, how does it sound? It sounds foolish. It doesn't make sense more often than not. Especially when you are trying to reason it out with this, your intellect. It does not always add up because his ways are not our ways. His ways are not our ways. Quickly, because I want us to finish on time so we can pray, I just want us to show us about 5 things that you can use to analyze the kind of relationship around you. And these 5 things I'm going to be talking about or mentioning to us, they are actually signs of bad relationships. So that when you know what the fake is, then you can begin to spot them around your life. You can quickly move away from them. So the first thing is that when you are not in a good relationship, when you are in a bad partnership, the first thing is the parties don't share the same values. That's the first indicator that, look, this I'm in is a bad partnership. The parties don't share the same values. Can somebody try and define for us what values are? Anybody? How will you describe values? Or how do you, yes, Sister Doreen?
Yes. It's, well, not stuff. It's what defines what we believe in, or what undergirds what we believe.
What?
What undergirds what we believe.
Undergirds what you
determine-
believe.
Yeah.
Sister Fola, I thought you brought one paper. Okay, you know what? I'll use the back, don't worry. Because I want to write that down.
So maybe principles, can we call them principles? That
Principles that undergirds what you believe.
what, yes.
Okay. Yes, any other person, quickly? Okay. Principles that undergirds what you believe. Yeah? Values. So, undergirds belief. Okay, so that means values are not what can be seen on the outside. Yes? No? Which one? Values is the standard of behavior. Standards of behavior. Okay, I think you are getting to where I want to drive us. So you have values. Yes? They fuel your beliefs. And your beliefs will be the one that determines your behavior. Okay. Values determines your belief. Your belief will determine your behavior. Can we see the sequence? So when you see someone, so what you tend to see when you relate with people is what? It is this, the behavior. That's what is outside. That is what you see, that everybody see. But what they don't see is what? It's your value system. But your value system itself actually did not just show up. It's a product of your thinking based on what you have heard or read about. And that's why when they want to indoctrinate people, how do they get that done? It's by telling them things consistent with how they want them to behave ultimately. But it's not the behavior they will introduce to you. It is words that will be spoken to you again and again and again. And what those words will do is it begins to settle down in your thinking. When that settles down in your thinking, it forms your values. And that's why when people say things that are contrary to those things, you are ready to fight. Why? Because underneath, you've been brainwashed. Yes. Underneath, your values are being set. Nobody sees your value. But the choices you make in life are based on not because of your behavior, because of your value system. Your value system is the bedrock. A man of God says that you behave what you believe. You behave what you believe. But underlining that behavior is the belief, and before belief, you have the value system. So when you are in a bad partnership, the first sign is the fact that you and the other party, you don't have the same set of values. And that already agrees with what we have read in 2 Chronicles chapter 6, from verse 14 to 18. Quickly, the second one sign, it says that the parties don't agree on a goal. You don't agree on a goal. That's a sign of bad partnership. You don't agree on a goal. Somebody is trying to go towards the north. The other person is saying, you know what, it's very wet and windy in the south. That's the way we should go. Amos 3:3, can two agree together? Can two work together except they agree? So the second sign of bad partnership is that the two don't agree on a goal. The third one is that one or both parties must compromise their convictions. Either you or the other person in that partnership we inevitably have to compromise their convictions. We inevitably have to sacrifice their values. We have to make choices that are not consistent with what they have always believed. That is the third indicator that shows to you you are in a bad partnership. Okay? The fourth one is that one party selfishly demands that the other surrender. You know, like the illustration of oxen being yoked together that we've always been given. For oxen that have been yoked together to go in different directions, what will have to happen? Hello? Okay, Sister Jessica. The fourth one says that one party selfishly demands that the other surrender. So one party demands that the other surrender. That's the fourth one. So if two oxen are yoked together, for them to go in different directions, what will have to happen? Sorry? Unyoke them. Thank you, Brother Fubi. One has to overpower the other. Let's say the yoke cannot be broken. Yes, then one we have to overpower the other to drag him in that direction. So this one will have to surrender to the will of the other one. When selfishness means when you find out that the person you are in partnership with every time is just about you defaulting to them, there's no compromise, there's no way they come to reason along with you, is a bad of what? Of bad partnership. The fifth one quickly is that one party believes and the one party benefits and the other party loses. So it's never a win-win situation. It's always a win-lose situation. So if we bring together these 5 factors that we've just mentioned to now put it into what we read in the book of 2 Kings chapter 3 and the entirety of Kings, actually, in terms of the alliance that Solomon and the other kings they formed that derailed them from the purpose of God, does this make sense to us tonight? To say we need to reevaluate the company we keep. And these are indicators that will show to you. And I believe, in fact, all the 5 things that I mentioned there, they are very good. But I will go back to this. Maybe that first one, actually, the fact that you don't share the same values already settles everything. It says it all. It says it all. So our young ones, yes, it applies to adults as well, but particularly I just want to use this to address our young ones. The friends you keep, if the people that are in your company, that are your best friend, they are the ones that always get detention in school, you can bet it's only a matter of time. Even if you are the son of Pope, you will soon start to get your own detention. Why? The friendship you keep plays a major, it influences your decision. So if you and I, we are going to fulfill God's counsel, God's mandate for our lives, it's very essential that we evaluate our company. We look into what kind of alliances we are forming. Because, look, the Christian journey that you and I will be called into is never a lone trip. Hello? It's never a lone trip. It's never a lone trip. It's not a journey that, oh, you just carry your bag and that's it. It's me, myself, and I. That's never the way it works. You see examples in the scriptures, even in the New Testament, even people that are fulfilling Paul. Paul, what did you, when you read through the book of Acts, how many times did you hear Paul alone doing stuff, doing ministry? No, you always have Paul and Barnabas, Paul and Silas, Paul and this, Paul and Timothy. There is always a company. Why? Because God has called us into a family. And in a family, you can't have a family if it's one person. Is it a family? No, it is not. Hebrews chapter 10 verse 25 crowns it for us. It says, do not forsake the what? The gathering together, the assembly of one another. Let's read that. Let's read that, please. Can you give it to us on the screen? Hebrews chapter 10 verse 25. Hello. Especially the latter part of it, that's where I want to emphasize on. Then we'll take questions and close. Now, it says, let us not give up meeting together. Okay? As some are in the habit of doing, some are in the habit of forsaking meeting together. But let us encourage one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. What's 26? What's in 26? Next verse. No. That's 25, I think in KJV. There is another way to put it. But the key message there is, look, don't make it an habit, because if you do make that an habit, you are doing that to the destruction of yourself. Okay, Pastor. Not forsaking, yeah. As the manner of some is.
But exhorting one another.
Exhorting one another.
And so much the more.
And so much the more.
As you see the day approaching.
Thank you, sir. So it's very essential that we have that understanding at the back of our mind. That look, this Christian walk, the call we have been called into, is not a solo journey. It's a journey that we need one another. But the question is, who are the one another you are gathering around yourself on this journey? We've read through the book of 2 Kings, as that summary of the video has shown to us, and we have concluded that the people that have made a success of their call to that place of ruling have been people that have been successful in their relationship with God. And the ones that have made a shipwreck of their dark calling has been because they have disobeyed. They have turned away from following God. And one of the very common reasons that's led to people forsaking the path of righteousness and choosing another way, the shortcut, has been the kind of association they've gone into. Last two weeks ago, I think I gave us Galatians 5:7. Galatians 5:7. So it's not about starting. That's what we are concluding on. It is not so much about how you have started your race. It's as well very important how you finish. Because it's only the people that finishes the race that gets rewarded. The World Athletics Championship is going on at the moment. I saw, was it 2 or 3? Yes, Galatians 5:7. You did run well. Who hindered you that you should not obey the truth? Who hindered you? Another translation says, who cut in on you that you miss out on the prize or something like that. So it's about finishing. About 3 nights ago, we were watching the World Athletics Championship, and I can't remember, maybe during the 1,500 or whatever, they all started and they were running, and for whatever reason, when they do all these long distance run, everybody come into the same lane, and this girl tripped, and she fell down. By then she got up again, others have gone. But when they finished the race, well, thank God for her perseverance. She didn't stop. She still finished. But you can see she was already crying. It does not matter how good she was when the race started. The fact that she fell on the way and could not keep up the pace with the group meant she missed out. So it's not so much about how you have started. It is because they will not now say, no, first, second, third. No, we are not giving those of you that crossed the line first. That one that fell, that did not complete, let's give her. Do you think they will do that? No. Same way, God has made provision for you and I to finish the race, because it is only when we finish the race that we get the reward that He has promised us. But the company we keep around us plays a major role in determining whether we will finish or not. Any questions to that or contributions? Any question or contribution? Yes, no? Sorry? It's very good. Okay. All right. All right. God is going to help us. And look, God is a very good God. There's a quote that somebody put on Facebook a while ago. He said, this Isaiah chapter, I think 50 or 55, that I know God will help me. There's a way to put it. I think Isaiah 50 or something. He will help me. I will not be ashamed. Blah 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 blah. I think Isaiah 50 or 55, 150, maybe one of the verses in 50. Now, as soon as that came up, another friend wrote to say, "Bro, that's Old Testament. Look, the help you need has been provided already. Why? Because the Holy Spirit has been freely given to you as a child of God. So it is no more a matter of, God is going to send help. You have the help, so you need to access that help. What you and I will need to finish the race is not like God is thinking of maybe He's going to give us. He has already given us. It's for us to access the help He has provided, so that we can head where we desire and where God has intended. Praise the Lord. So I want us to pray tonight, and let's just call upon God. It's about choices. That's what everything boils down to. The choices we make. They play, what your choices today determines your outcomes tomorrow. So I want us to just pray, just one prayer point that, Father, help me. Lord, concerning the choices I make, shine your light into my life. If there be areas of my life that have veered, have gone wrong, I've departed from what I needed to be, or who you have called me to be. Father, I cry to you tonight. I ask that by the help of the Holy Spirit, Lord, that you realign us to your will tonight. Lord, that you realign us to your purpose tonight. Every one of us, the young, the old, Eternal Father, we cry to you tonight. We ask for your help in this place. You have called us to yourself. You said, these people have I formed for myself, that they may show forth my praises continually. Lord, you have an eternal purpose for us in Christ Jesus. Every choice we've made, or we are making, or we may make, that will not make us, that will make us to miss out even of this eternal purpose. We cry to you, O God, that by the help of your Holy Spirit, you will redirect us, that we will choose what is right and pleasing in your sight all the days of our lives. Lord, the wisdom to make the right choices, we cry for that wisdom today. James 1:5 says, if any of you lack wisdom, you should ask from God, who gives liberally and does not upbraid. So Lord, we cry to you tonight for the wisdom of choice, the wisdom to choose what is right, the wisdom to choose what is consistent with your plan, the wisdom to choose what is consistent with your purpose for us, your purpose for us part time. Father, we ask for that wisdom in this place tonight. Fill us with your wisdom, O God. Thank you, Father. We honor you. We give praise to you, for in Jesus' mighty name we have prayed.